welcome to the Gruber Morning Show. This is our Artificial Intelligence podcast. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Erica Guthrie.
And I'm Janie Herndon-Leon.
And we're going to have some fun today. The background behind us is one of the first things we wanted to tell you about. Usually we use artificial intelligence, but this is actually a picture that was taken up in Sedona. To the left of me, right of me, sorry. Yep. There's a Starbucks there. And on a Sunday morning, this is a great place to hang out, as you can see from the scenery and the beautiful weather up there. So
I'm sure it's like that right now out there.
Yep.
The weather is amazing.
And what's nice is for us that live in Arizona, you know, during the extremely hot months, you can go up to Sedona and still get some reprieve from that.
We don't have 120 degrees in Sedona and Flagstaff during summer.
Doesn't take long to get there.
The thumbnail that we have shows some kids playing, and then some kids stuck with their
engrossed in their cell phone.
Right, this sort of thing. You know, when I drive to work in the morning, there are people that are walking their dogs, right?
Right.
Half of them have their cell phones like this.
While they're walking, right.
Are they going to fall? And I'm thinking, my God, it's a beautiful morning. It's spring. The birds are chirping. You know,
and
the
they're
wildlife.
not looking at the flowers.
No, they're in their digital world.
No, they never stop and smell the roses.
Pictures of the flowers.
Right.
And they have to stay
other
connected.
people doing things like that.
You know, I never could walk and chew bubble gum, let alone walk and look at my phone.
Yeah. Well, I have some pretty, big thoughts about the whole societal change of now people being in their phone. You know, growing up in the 80s, the whole big thing about kids and TV and their kids have too much TV time.
We were concerned, yes.
Oh, that was a big
Should've
deal.
been.
You know, when I got out of school and I wanted to go home and watch, my programs and stuff, it was like, nope, Janie, you got a half hour and that was it. You know, you're restricted and that's just going to ruin you. And
go climb that tree.
Yeah, exactly.
Go play baseball with your friends.
Exactly. Come home when the lights come on.
So we'd have to go run around the desert,
We didn't have clocks.
And, now as an adult, many years later, just a few, I look back and I'm like, well, did it really affect me in any way in my perspective of where I'm at now mentally and who I am? I watch some TV, I'm a news person, so I got to see the highlights of what's going on in the world, but I don't think it perpetually affected who I am, how I am, my thinking skills.
Your identity's gone if you don't have it.
Right. And my mental well-being.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we're going with the whole cell phone action as well, is we have this hyper spotlight on people being engrossed in it. And yes, I agree, it is taking away our social activities, as far as interacting with people when we're in an elevator and things like that. But is it really, though?
Well, there's an interesting article here, and this is from a columnist, Ricky Schlott, who draws from personal experiences to argue that the digital childhood is a childhood lost or squandered.
Okay.
And here are her viewpoints. And by the way, your question, we don't know.
Exactly.
We don't know yet. Because on one hand, we're in the information age. Right. And unlike in the past, when in order to get information, it was cumbersome, library, Encyclopedia Britannica, and who wants to do that when you're outside
and then
playing,
you never find out, and it goes left unanswered.
Right.
Yeah.
But she says to grow up online is to be an experimental guinea pig, modified with a digital appendage.
Right.
For those of us raised with iPads in our grubby toddler grasp and iPhones in our middle school backpacks, a childhood without devices is unimaginable.
It is to them.
My granddaughter, while we were in Europe, right? Beautiful scenery in the Alps, right?
Oh, yeah.
Her cell phone went dead at one point, and she was decimated.
The anxiety attack I see my kid get when his phone dies, he's like, Mom, everything needs to stop and I need to find a charger. And I'm like, what is going on in your world that is that crucial?
So she says, a tiny 6-inch screen redefined what it means to grow up, hit milestones, and pass time, so much so that this generation's upbringing is entirely alien even to that of our parents.
It's very true.
They talk about, or she talks about, algorithmic feeds took over much of our youth. Digital trances replacing many of the foundational real-life experiences that countless generations had grown up with before the 21st century.
Oh, God, I agree with that wholeheartedly, because having my children, I mean, all they do and all they care about is trends. All they care about is what's going on that everyone else is doing. It's like a permanent keeping up with the Joneses phase, and it just makes no sense.
But all generations went through that.
I know, but it's digital instead. I don't think it's different than what others have gone through in generational. I don't think it's different, except for the information at our fingertips, like, you know, appropriate things to watch. You know, filters, trying to block, you know, horrible content from your child that like doesn't exist anymore.
Remember
you
when
don't
the Bonds
shelter
was a
your
bad
kid
guy?
anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
He was the one to stay away from.
When I was
You
a show,
every
it was
generation to be.
He was the one your parents didn't want you to date.
Yeah, and now we look at
The
it
bad
and we're
guy.
like,
Now everybody wants a Bond.
He's safe. Yeah.
He'll kill that guy for you. When I was a kid, we had a show called Degrassi, which was like basically, if you will, like a drama sitcom of all these kids in school. And there's a rapper now, his name is Drake. And he was on that show. And when he was younger. And it's like, I grew up with that. And that being what I looked at, it was like Saved by the Bell, only way more inappropriate. And it was the same idea. But now these shows and the content that's coming out and the way that people are seeing their bodies and their minds and what's really, truly important, you're nothing if you don't have followers. You're nothing if you don't wear a crop top as a girl and you're not showing your midriff. You're nothing if you don't have this, and that going on in your life. And that's how they're valuing themselves. And it's just disgusting.
Well, she talks a bit about the very thing that you just mentioned. She says, it wasn't because my parents were neglectful. Quite the opposite, she says. But faced with the unrelenting pleading and prospect that their shy child would be the only one left out of the multi-line calls after school and the group chats, making weekend plans, they relented. Virtually all my peers' parents had already folded and given into this.
Right, of course, right.
She says, although I didn't fully understand it, the fleeting free moments of my youth were constantly being preyed upon by invisible forces. In the early days of iPhones and social media, most parents didn't understand the bargain they were making. The tiny screens were a portal into fast-changing digital world rife with anxiety-inducing social comparisons, unrealistic beauty standards, and new forms of predation and cyberbullying.
Absolutely.
She says they didn't see the consequences coming. Youth anxiety and depression are reaching record highs.
Do you guys want to know how my parents combated that with me and my siblings?
Please.
I grew up with the first generation iPhone pretty much. And then even earlier than that, the Razor and those weird flip phones and ones with the keyboards and whatnot. I had a time limit. On how long I could be on the phone or how long I could play a video game or how long I could watch TV. All of my siblings had that. Every single one of them. We had 1 hour. That's it. And then if we were good, we could have a little bit more time. If we were bad, we could not have that hour at all. And it worked. It may have been real difficult for my brother because he tended to be a bit more rebellious, but it still worked. In my head, as far as electronics go, you got to have a time limit, and that relies heavily on the parents.
So balance.
Do you know in the state of Arizona, those that don't have children, I found this out recently, that if you give your child a phone and they are over the age of 10 years old, you are not allowed to take that phone away. They can actually...
Really?
Yeah, you've provided a gift to them and you're stealing their property and they can call the police.
Wow.
It's nuts. I'm not educating you young people on purpose. I don't think you're watching this. However, I hope if you understand, like, we're taking it to help you, not to hurt you. But the fact that that even existed, and I didn't know that because my son had said to me, you know, he was 15, and he got a phone from his dad, and his dad gave him the gift, and I said, I'm going to take it. Well, I found out because of that, he didn't call cops on me, but he just told me, he's like, Mom, just so you know,
so
this is happening in the world.
So what you're saying is instead of, if you were rebelling, instead of sneaking out, you would sneak your cell phone under the covers or something, right?
I mean, I would, right? For sure. I've done it a couple of times, but at that point, you have to take into account a lot of different factors. So for me personally, my parents are divorced. So I had to have constant contact with my father.
Right. Which is more and more how it goes here. I had to have my phone,
whether my birth mom liked it or not.
Right.
I had to have contact with my dad.
You had to be able to,
because sometimes things would happen and I would need his assistance.
Right.
You have to take those things into factor. So if you have a nice loving family and they are still together, then I don't think it's an issue if they take your phone away for a certain amount of time.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Gotcha. So she goes on, she says self-harm hospitalizations and suicide attempts are soaring.
It's worse now than it's ever been.
She says that she's fortunate to have made it out of that minefield unscathed, but one feature of the online world that got her, the algorithms which drain us of our most precious and finite resource, time.
Right.
Yep.
She says, ever since I got an iPhone, I was awash in dopamine. Be it from massive streaks of Candy Crush or Instagram, like the popular, or an Instagram like from the popular girl at school, or a Snapchat notification from Crush.
Right.
I find myself doing that. If I'm on Facebook, if somebody likes my stuff, I'm interested in that.
Yeah, like, why would you care?
It's gratifying, yeah.
Who all liked it?
Who was it? Are they important?
That constant impending concern that you may be missing something that's going on online unless you're tuned in.
You know, I'm one of those people that I believe what you're talking about exists no matter what and no matter what realm you operate in, whether it be in the digital space, whether it be in school with kids, no matter what, it's gonna exist. It's just society and the way we operate. And so I think that putting, moderating it, putting things like that. Yes, that's our duty as parents, advisors, as, leaders. You want to watch, make sure things are kept in line. But at the same point, you don't want to stop progress. You don't want to stop, hold back where we're going and what we're doing because, just like it goes back to every generation thinks the last generation's music was terrible. Next generation's music is terrible. There's always going to be something that the next generation is going to say, oh, no, that's not a good path. And, you just got to embrace it.
It gets tougher being a parent, I think.
I'm saying back in my day, and I'm only 36. It really makes me feel odd. I'm like, well, back in my day, bubblegum was 25 cents.
Yes. What you got?
Humans are creatures of habit.
100%.
We don't like change.
Nope.
This, as a natural thing, we're creatures of habit. So we like having a schedule. We like
routine.
Having the same
structure.
thing. We like having structure, yes. So changes make us uncomfortable a little bit. It's called a comfort zone for a reason. So I understand the thought process behind it. Like the newer generation music isn't as good as my generation music.
Exactly.
But I understand that because it's new. It's not comfortable. We're not
I can't understand
it yet.
I can't understand it.
But people can always grow and change.
You're singing my song now.
Yeah, people can grow and change. But then there's people like me who are like just kind of stuck in our ways. Like I feel like you said, creature of habit, absolutely. So it just makes sense. But technology is innovating and technology is their future. So for them to be immersed in technology makes sense. But there's this fine line between obsession and like knowledge.
Yeah. We have Mr. Obertowski joining us from YouTube. Hello, Mr. Gruber, says he. Thanks for joining us. Yeah.
Welcome.
I've got a picture we can pop up here, Cass, and this one is an interesting article.
Ooh.
AI will surpass human intelligence by 2027. Now it's 2 years away.
Wow.
So what they're saying here is no one knows exactly what's next for AI, but a group of 5 researchers, including a former OpenAI employee, have shared a detailed scenario where things could be heading by 2027. And they call the report the AI 2027 report. And these are pretty knowledgeable people, apparently, so they have some credibility.
Right.
What they're saying is that AI will exceed human intelligence, not just theoretically, but in practical capability.
Yeah.
By late 2027. And they, at that point in time, they say that AI will be self-improving.
Good.
Not us
Find
feeding
its
it.
own solutions. Okay.
It will be reasoning across domains
Okay.
and solving problems faster than we can comprehend them.
I can
Wow.
guarantee that's a possibility.
Yeah.
So this forecast is based on a thought experiment, a fictional society where AI tools were given total freedom to evolve. In this scenario, AI doesn't just answer questions or write code, it becomes the scientist, proposing theories, running its own experiments, and pushing research forward.
Wow.
So we keep talking about,
Right.
where are the Einsteins in the future and the Thomas Alva Edisons and the
It's
Teslas,
in
Nikola
AI.
Teslas. AI is going to have a much easier time innovating and bringing in
Absolutely.
new concepts once it's self-evolving.
You think it's going to be like putting out like statues of its founders, its inventors?
And then there'll be a robot
That'd be
faction
funny.
that
It'll
takes
be
them down.
Bumblebee.
Right?
They've already got it. It's off Cave Creek Highway. It's Bumblebee. It's a giant bumblebee from
They
Transformers.
say the bottom line is that AI will be capable of designing better AI and making itself even more powerful.
I mean,
Couple years away, guys.
I can't wait to see what happens. We've got Obertowski says in Ireland, because the government lifted minimum wage, next year we won't be able to operate supermarkets without one of Tesla's robots. It's not a question if we need it. We must have it and or close down.
Wow. That's an
See?
interesting thought.
You wouldn't have had that grocery
The
store
impact of it,
if
yeah.
AI hadn't come through. That's crazy.
There you go. Thanks for joining in. I
Thank
love that.
you.
Ireland, shout out.
Fly on wheels. Hi.
We've got another image here. This one is near and dear to my heart.
So cool.
The grandma of AI, the world's first chatbot, Eliza.
I know. It's a grandpa representing grandma. We got
This
that.
must have been an AI. That got the
I must
gender
have
wrong.
screwed up.
It's definitely improving.
Can't wait till 2027 and see what
But it
pops up.
has long hair.
That's funny.
So this may not sound like a lot, but it turns out that the original code for Eliza was lost until 2021, when a team of researchers from MIT and Stanford uncovered it in the university's archives. Now, for those of you unfamiliar, Eliza, back in the 60s, computers were pretty utilitarian. They either they read punch cards, for example, the IBM punch cards. If you did any basic or Fortran programming back then, you might get it to do a print routine. But no one really conceived back then that a computer is something that you could talk to and that it could respond.
Right.
And if you did write something like that, which you could in BASIC, if you see this question, then answer it this way, it was contrived. People knew it wasn't real. Well, Eliza was full of surprises, and it actually learned at times as well. So what they ended up doing was, it was written in a programming language called Mad-Slip. I've never heard of it, but it's an obscure, now obsolete programming language, and the code required intensive restoration.
I bet.
So the team debugged it, created a custom emulator to replicate the computing environment of the 60s. And they were successful December 21st of last year when Eliza successfully ran again for the first time in 60 years.
Did it tell us what it's been up to?
That would be cool, wouldn't it?
Is there another life?
Oh, Eliza.
Now, to give credit to this this early AI, probably the first AI program, it was created by Professor Josef Weizenbaum at MIT. And it was designed to simulate a psychotherapist by mimicking human conversation. They say Eliza would prompt users with questions like, "In what way?" And they tell me more. All of this
Right.
early foundation for modern AI dialogue systems.
Seriously.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
See, I found in reading about, and diving more into AI and technology, most all of this technology existed a long time ago, and we're just perfecting it or reviving it, as it says.
Well, in this case, it's something to be celebrated because they thought it was lost, and they say that Eliza really played a pivotal role in shaping how humans interact with machines.
Yeah.
And they're right, because it was for us at the time a paradigm shift. We weren't used to being able to talk to a computer,
No.
even though we knew that it was a novelty,
Yeah.
But it kind of opened your mind to, well, what if? Why not? Those kinds of questions.
I remember using word perfect and word processors and things like that back in the day. And conceptually, I did not and would not have grasped the idea that computers could be taken to the point that they are today.
Yeah.
It just wasn't in my mindset to think. I would, I'd use those systems all the time. And, okay, what's 2 + 2? Like, okay, typing the word out. Like, you just did not have it going to that point.
When I was a
that
kid,
degree.
my dad was teaching at High Tech Institute, and he was showing and teaching others how to build the boards, the circuit boards, and how to program and how to code. So I was kind of like forced into a computer very
good.
young, and going to school with my dad and seeing, Ask
Then you could
Jeeves was
see.
my first AI. I think.
Oh, yeah.
When I really look
remember
back,
Jeeves.
Ask
Yeah.
Jeeves was before Google,
Right.
and you would ask it a question and it would regurgitate information.
Yeah.
You would
Yeah,
ask
it
it,
was very
if
cool.
you asked it, why am I sad? We used to mess with it. Why am I sad? And it'd say, probably because you're low on energy, you need more magnesium, you need
Right.
potassium. It would give you something educational through it. Now you ask it, it's all opinions. Now it's just, I can't compute what's real and fake. Here's a bunch of info. There you go. You figure it out.
So the advancements with AI are continuous, and we
Yeah.
try to report on all of them, but it's impossible to hit them all. But one major
Right.
milestone that occurred here just a few weeks ago in Chandler, Arizona, was an avatar that actually spoke to the murderer in court who was being sentenced.
Yes.
That's right. Wasn't he an
Yeah.
officer or
And-
something?
Yeah, and the bottom line is murder victims never make it to the courtroom.
No, they don't. Their
Right.
voice isn't. That was the coolest thing to see.
Yes, and
His
to actually
face.
watch the model, of him, the avatar
Right.
of him speaking, attesting to who he was and
That
what
would
he
hit any
thought.
juror.
And it was difficult for the family. It's the Pelkey family, by
Yep.
the way.
Right.
Because the sister who actually put this together didn't believe the same way that her brother did, but she knew her brother's preferences and his personality. That
Right.
he would have been forgiving.
Yeah.
And that's what this thing was centered around.
Yeah.
So that made it even more meaningful. She didn't agree with this, but
Right.
I guess out of respect for her brother,
Yeah.
she
Right.
decided that his message needed to be told in court.
So impactful.
Yeah. So the question is, how will this affect the judicial system in the future?
Oh my gosh, every juror is going to be like,
Well,
guilty.
they're appealing it.
Oh, are they?
The prosecutors are in the process of appealing it right now because they're saying that that by bringing that
It swayed the
avatar
jurors.
in and speaking on its behalf, we don't know truly what, even though the sister, it's not his.
Now, they were very careful. They will not allow this during the
No, it was only afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It was once the indictment had been handed down.
Correct.
It was the sentencing now that was affected by that, which of
Right.
course provides the ability for the judge to insert some leniency.
Correct.
True.
So
Yeah,
it
I could
still
see.
does influence the outcome to a degree.
Oh yeah, okay. Right, I didn't think about that.
Oh, in
end of it.
some shop, Obertowski says, in some shops in Ireland, super value, which I actually know that one. We already have robots that go around the shop and placing orders and checking planograms and prices. They're like Roomba, iRobot. They don't walk, they glide.
Actually, I was just talking to John Dotson this morning, who participates in our Gruber Wired podcast, and they have seen these robots going into like Quick Trip. He mentioned another store that they have them now working in, like the bathrooms on the floor.
Oh, yeah. Or what about these drones that fly the packages right to your house?
Oh, yeah. Amazon's doing that. Yeah.
So when I was with Amazon, they were working on something called Scout. And no, I won't get sued. I'm good now. Right. Just a disclaimer. So the way that it was designed was, a business owner would have what looks like a container, but ultimately it's a charging station. And these robots would get filled by an Amazon driver, and they would drive to the human's home and wait on the porch. And it would have a cooler in it, so if you ordered fresh groceries, it would stay cool. And that was the point of it, was also in reducing theft. It launched in Washington, and so many people were scared of the robots running around that they were like, no. So the cities were like, no, we're being overthrown by robots. It was quite funny to see the reaction of others in its deployment. But those that had gotten to utilize it, they thought it was the coolest thing. They're like, I scan a barcode, this thing's opening. And if someone touched it without scanning the barcode, this like siren would go off and it would say, we're calling the police.
So it would prevent the porch pirates from stealing
theft protection.
Goods.
What a fantastic idea, but they didn't think about the fact that it can only go on major sidewalks. It has to map the whole area, and then there was so much more involved with it. So obviously, it's still in Washington. It's not really anywhere else, but
slipping on ice.
Then
like
they
a
did the
Waymo
drones.
situation.
That's when they then figured out the drones. They're so much cheaper. You don't have to worry about battery packs. You don't have to worry about equipment
Dropping it
maintenance.
off.
You just drop it.
Yeah.
So much more efficient. I wanted to see one. I've been waiting.
I'm looking forward to talking about yesterday's announcement. Keep going.
Oh, all right. Why don't we get right to that then? And
Let's
I can
go.
into my fan portion here as well then.
Well, I'll go ahead and mention it.
Yeah.
Yesterday, they came out with the announcement of the Golden Dome. If we want to pull it, can we bring
we got
that
a
picture
there,
up?
Kat. Oops, wait a minute. It was a different format.
Okay. Do you
There we
have
go,
it there?
All right.
Yes. The Golden Dome for
So
America.
cool.
United States. And our neighbors can also participate in it as well.
Okay.
And protecting our nation from any adversarials, missiles, obviously, other launches. But we're using AI in several different aspects to anticipate, to know what's coming, when it's coming. Like they use AI on even my cameras at home has AI incorporated into it to know what is coming, things like that.
Yeah, routine.
So this is an advanced multi-layered defense shield designed to protect our country
Right.
from advanced missile threats.
Right.
And if you think about it, every superpower on the planet now has the ability to send destructive, missiles and bombs and wherever they want on the planet, destroy the planet basically.
Yeah.
So how do you protect against that? Well, the Star Trek shield comes to mind.
Right,
That's exactly what this reminds me of. Yeah.
So I was just watching a Marvel movie called Doctor Strange.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's the second one or whatever, and the mean witch comes and they put this huge force field around their fortress, and it can't be penetrated through that, and that's what it is. I'm a Marvels freak, so.
But it's neat. It's
cool.
Yeah.
So
and we're
cool.
going to be using
I can't wait till it protects us. Thank you.
SpaceX is going to participate in this as well.
Right. In order to make this work, apparently, they have to have a number of satellites
Positioned.
and, which are far more accurate than ground-based detection systems, where
Yeah.
the missile can basically go halfway across the ocean before you
We
realize
even
that
know
it's
it, yeah.
heading toward
Coming.
New York, right?
Yeah.
Right. That
so
makes
these
sense.
satellites would be early warning detection. In fact, some of it they talk about here is that these AI algorithms will process data from a network of satellites and sensors to rapidly identify and track incoming threats. The decision making and interception will be AI. Faster than humans, in other words. Now, should I push that button or not? Let me see. Do we have the key? Where's the key to push that button, right?
Right.
So that speeds way up. And they talk about SpaceX being involved, including deploying satellites that will form the backbone of this Golden domes detection.
That's cool.
Now, here's what
Thanks,
could
Elon.
ultimately happen. With AI continuing to go at the rate that it is going, where it's thinking for itself in a couple of years, right? As different countries continue to advance technologically speaking and roll out AI, eventually we get to a system where AI is communicating amongst the different countries, and we take the Golden Dome down because it's not needed anymore.
Oh, wouldn't that
Perfect.
be beautiful?
Yes.
That's the outcome.
That'd be great.
In 100 years from now.
Of course, that will happen once
Right.
AI begins to take over.
Yeah.
And of course,
Right.
I think we're headed that way. I've said that all along. AI overlords are probably the
Right.
only sane way to stop this planet's continued destruction.
I mean, I don't disagree.
You know, I was watching the other
Yeah.
night. There's a Vietnam on Netflix. There's a Vietnam War series right now, and it's
Okay.
dear to my heart because
what you're talking
a lot
about.
of my buddies in high school died there. You know?
Right.
And I was potentially one of the ones that was going to get sent over there because of the draft. So
Right.
it's near and dear to my heart.
Sure.
And they showed that every war looks the same.
It does.
Yeah.
Buildings destroyed, human casualties.
And they all started the same in
Yeah.
some way or another, too.
Yeah, and it's always a tit for tat. You know, the
Right.
Gaza thing, and now the
Yeah.
hospitals are being bombed. Where's it going to stop?
It's
I mean,
not.
Right.
You know,
Right.
So AI overlords, and once that's in place,
Yeah.
AI controls all of these electronic
Right.
systems. If we neutralize all of this weapons of mass destruction
Right. The
capability on this
nuclear
planet, we're all on the
threats
same
are all
level.
managed by
Yeah.
the same,
Yeah.
system. Then you don't have to worry about them going off because, they're going to be covering the whole
They take the
planet.
control out of our hands so we can focus on things that actually matter.
Taking
And
care of
like
the bees.
people.
Yeah.
Like the bees.
Taking care of the
the
bees.
planet,
Yeah,
making sure that global warming isn't messing up the planet, that the
can
coastal
climb the
cities
Alps,
are not.
You're not
getting
you're not
flooded
doom
because-
scrolling and your child's floating in the pool.
Yeah.
I swear to
That's true,
gosh,
too.
that's something I can't stand.
But
I watch these parents, just sitting there doom scrolling all day, and they're at the park with their kid, and I'm like, why'd you bring them here?
So we often talk about the advantages of AI and how it can be
there's
used in
some
business.
comments,
But
too.
we've got comments. Let's do those first then.
Yeah. Go ahead, Erica.
Okay, when Tesla robot is ready, we want it ASAP. You call Tesla. One robot will take pressure from wage budget as it can work 24 hours a day, packing and cleaning. Just one robot will save us. Isn't that funny? Uh-oh. What's John Dotson say?
Oh, you gotta bring it
Cats.
up, guys. Scoot it up a little bit. There we
You're
go.
slacking.
There we
gotta
go.
get John.
I am curious if this Golden Doom technology will
Dome.
also...
Dome.
Sorry. Not Doom, my bad.
The opposite of what we're trying to do here.
Exactly.
My bad, guys. I was thinking Doom. Technology will also be used for any space debris with a collision course. Oh, with Earth. Will we be able to stop an asteroid and protect the entire planet? Probably.
I bet you that's
Probably.
probably what they're thinking of and taking that into consideration.
Great perception.
Yeah, with the asteroids and things like that we find headed towards Earth,
Yeah.
projecting where it'll come.
I think we're giving John some ideas for his podcast.
Probably. It's okay. We'll
why
join you
did I-
anytime, John.
Yeah. So why did I throw a fan up here, folks? This is a radial fan.
Oh, this is cool. Yeah.
And, long story short, we scrap uninterruptible power systems, critical power equipment, if it doesn't make it into the field or can be refurbished. And then we render it back to basic metals. And I saw this beautiful, two of them actually, computer room AC units that go right in the data center. They have 3 of these large radial fans inside this 7-foot cabinet. And it occurred to me, why are we scrapping this? It's
a nice cabinet.
Summer's coming. We're buying
Yeah.
fans for the warehouse guys. Why not take this cabinet and turn this into a hurricane type fan?
Oh,
right?
yeah.
How fun. You're always inventing something fun. I love it.
So we brought the cabinet over to GMC, and this weekend we were working on it, and we were trying to fire up these fans, and it turns out they just wouldn't fire up, although it seemed pretty simple.
Right.
So we then said, well, what kind of fan is this? It says 200 volts at 277. Went out on Google and couldn't find anything. Some of them said that this is obsolete, couldn't even get a picture of it, right?
Right.
Wow.
So we kind of gave up, and then I said, wait a minute, why don't we try AI?
Right.
All right. So now I'm going to show you some stuff that AI came up with, and this just blew us away.
Okay.
The first thing that came up, and I don't know if you can read this, but I will read it for
Yeah,
you.
you'll have to read it.
Paraphrase. It was an odd part number, of course, but AI knew exactly what it was.
Oh,
Amazing.
So what it said was, this is a high-performance EC centrifugal fan designed for industrial ventilation and HVAC applications. So it knew exactly where this was being used. Well, how does it know that? This fan could have been used in other things, I'm thinking. So I'm thinking, well, this is pretty credible, pretty smart, right? So then it gives me a whole bunch of specifications. And then the final thing, it says, this fan has been discontinued due to unavailability of certain components. It
Okay.
knew that as well. So then we went to
What
the next
component?
page.
Right. We can make them.
Right. There we go. So then I said, well, is it three-phase or single-phase?
Start out there.
Yes, start there.
Right.
And they said, well, it said it's a three-phase fan motor, 400 volts, 380 to 480, 50 to 60 hertz. Then I say, well, why does the motor tag say 200 to 277 volts? Because there's a discrepancy there. I thought, well, maybe it's wrong, right?
Right.
It says, well, good observation. The apparent mismatch between 277 volt rating on the motor tag and the three-phase system rating can be confusing, but here's an explanation.
Oh.
So now it's talking to me
It's
like
gonna
I'm
teach you.
a grammar school kid,
I know,
right?
you're
I
in
love
kindergarten
it.
now.
But I like it because I'm getting information.
Right.
Well, it turns out that this is an electronically commutated motor. What that basically means is there are no
So-
brushes, and it's done electronically
Okay.
Okay.
on the rotor. But here's some more very interesting stuff that explains why we couldn't fire it up. The motor itself operates on DC voltage converted from AC. And the tag shows 200 to 277 because that's the DC input to the motor directly.
I was
That's direct
suspecting
current
that you're
and
talking
alternating
about
current.
Yeah.
y'all.
And then it can operate, and it's self-sensing either three-phase or single-phase. Because it senses it and then
Wow,
operates.
okay.
So now I'm getting explanations why the
Yeah.
tags
Okay.
are, confusing. The model's controller adapts to either single or three-phase depending on wiring and application. So then the bottom line is, it says, let me know if you want the official wiring diagram or data set configuring this.
Oh,
I
yes.
think, well, yeah, exactly. Right? But it knows that I probably
It's
need
already
this.
leading
Yeah.
you to what you're looking for.
That's
right.
cool.
So then the next thing that I get
I
is
see why we have
number
rabbit
3.
holes with AI now.
So then it shows this little block diagram, which is the wiring diagram, and it gives me an explanation. So then I open up the wiring diagram, and suddenly I have a full schematic.
Wow.
It shows what this fan is, what's inside it, how it converts the AC to DC, why it
Wow.
can be used single phase or three phase. It's self-sensing, and suddenly I have all the information that I need.
So now
That's
you can
so
fix
cool.
the fan.
The final thing it then asks me, it says, if you need further assistance with specific wiring or configuration or have additional questions, feel free to ask.
I'll send a robot over.
Yeah, right.
I'll be happy to help you with that.
Now remember, Google failed us for a good 20
Totally.
minutes. We
Right.
tried everything, tried
Right.
different part numbers. We went to the various pictures that we could
It's
find.
so difficult to bring together the information that you find on Google to make it in a format that
Yeah, you
is
really have to know what you're
easy-
looking for.
Well, it's so buried in some
Right.
areas, and
Convoluted.
yep, there you go.
Absolutely. I'll search for something very similar. Like when I was doing paralegal work, I'd be like, show me ARS code 13. And then it would be like, here's 13. And then all of them. And they wouldn't list it in the proper order. And I'd have to go through and like a cipher
dig
and
through it.
figure it
Right,
out.
and
And I'm
filter it.
like, oh, thank gosh for these
Right.
legal programs that they had. I was like, screw this.
All right, so I've got another image we can pop up here, and this one really had me intrigued because Ray Kurzweil, by the way, is a futurist and inventor.
Okay.
I bought one of his keyboards in the 1980s, actually. Kurzweil, keyboards.
Uh-huh.
He was, he was in the audio business, and he predicts that by the year 2030, humans will be able to connect their brains directly to cloud-based artificial intelligence.
So my
hope so.
great-grandkids will be able to know my memories.
Totally. Yeah.
That's
well, he
cool.
gets into
And maybe
backing
not.
up. He says this will create a hybrid of biological and non-biological intelligence.
Right.
And the way that this is going to work, he says, is it will be facilitated with nanobots. Remember, they're tiny little microorganisms that float in your bloodstream and report about conditions in your body. You mentioned earlier, wouldn't it be cool to have your glucose levels in your blood continuously monitored?
Yeah.
You
Right.
don't even need an implant under the skin with these nanobots.
No.
They're cruising your system. And
Wow.
Right.
you guys have probably seen movies about this. Where,
Yes,
you know,
yes. What is the cartoon
the
like
tiny
that?
little ship goes into the artery
Oh,
and then migrates through the body.
The magic school bus.
The magic
there you
school
go.
bus. Yes.
Miss Frizzle.
So it turns out that he claims that these microscopic robots will be made from DNA strands that navigate through the brain's capillaries to interface with the neurons. And that will then provide real-time communication between the human brain and a cloud-based AI system, allowing instantaneous access to information and enhanced cognitive abilities. In other words, we're now tuned into what they used to call the Akashic records in the metaphysical world. It's the compendium of all knowledge ever created. Sounds like AI to me, right?
Yeah.
We'll be tuned into that at all times.
I won't be
and
called
then
stupid anymore.
What you were
Just
saying,
kidding.
this technology will allow individuals to back up their thoughts and memories, providing a form of cognitive immortality.
Ooh.
Right.
Storing
Sadly,
personal
generational.
experiencing and knowledge in the
No
cloud.
more family secrets.
So you can,
Like I said, I was glad there was no videos when I was a teenager.
I know. I'm screwed.
Running around.
so they can preserve, or we can preserve, our mental faculties indefinitely, even as our biological bodies age. Now, of course, that also is altering because we're merging humans with machines, and these organs that are no longer working well, let's get a hybrid replacement.
Sure.
Let's become like those hybrid cars that are EV and ICE engine.
Right.
And eventually migrate to 100% EV. or
So
100%.
with this nanotechnology, then if I'm like 80, it can tell my body, no, we're not. We're 20. And then we'll just take a run.
Yeah, totally. It's
That'd be
it's
cool.
just a fascinating.
I love the thought of, because I've done so much recently, my uncle has been wonderful sending us stuff on our history and, our grandparents and things like that. And, logging that information. And so I'm like, I have to pass this down to the next generations, but not needing to worry about passing that information down so that the next generations know where they came from
just
historically.
available.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so cool. I look back at my history and I found out so much from 23andMe that I didn't need to know.
And, we think that this is new and that this is futuristic, but if you think about it, from a couple hundred years ago or so, we have already reached these levels of preservation.
Absolutely.
Compared to what
With-
they were doing, with the horse
Pictures,
buggy and
for example, right? We have images of our grandparents nowadays,
Right.
And recordings,
Yep.
Yes.
even if it's magnetic tape,
Oh, yeah.
videos,
Yeah.
that are preserved now for forever, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So-
the advancements are just as wide.
Oh, they are
reaching,
evolving,
yeah.
And so this isn't that far-fetched if you think
No,
about
not
it.
really.
We've already begun to reach. So what Kurzweil also says is he foresees a future where human intelligence and machine intelligence merge, which will then eventually lead to singularity around the year 2045. And it will fundamentally transform.
That's totally doable.
It's really
Yeah,
not that
that's
far
very
away.
realistic.
2045.
If anything, I feel like they're overextending. Oh, I think it'll be ready before that.
What's within our lifetime.
Yeah.
That's the cool part. Yeah.
That is cool. I can't
Amazing.
wait to see where this goes. And I really do hope that with so much information at and disposable at our fingertips, I want to see humans make better choices and make better decisions because you already have the information. You already see where history has taken us. Why repeat it?
Well, AI, even the way it talks to you, can lead you and persuade you
You're
in
right.
a certain direction.
I'm going to help you make a better decision.
Exactly.
Right.
Why don't you go this way with
The
that?
parental veer.
It won't be cool when that's your humanoid robot maid that gives you suggestions.
Right,
you know?
right,
Yeah.
exactly. Why don't you pick up your socks from the bedroom floor?
So, we there's always more AI content.
Absolutely.
that
I know,
we're
we could
able to
go on for
deliver.
another 3
We
hours.
didn't get through half of it,
No.
but we try to keep these to half an hour.
Yes.
We really appreciate everyone that joined us, and we'll see you next week. I'm Pete Gruber.
America.
And I'm Janie.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.